Okay, so the first thing we're going to have a look at is posture. So when we're sitting up to the ball, always want to make sure we're getting the tilt forward from the hips, but keeping the shoulders back. So when I tilt forward, I've got my chest up and out, and my arms are hanging, but they're not completely straight. So if I make my arms really straight here and my hands hang under my shoulders, it's going to make the shoulders too round this way. But if I lift my hands up a little bit and just have a slight bend in the arms, you can see that my posture is already looking better. So I tilt about 20 degrees forward from my hips. I keep my chin up. I let my arms just stay relaxed. There's a slight bend in them. So my hands are actually a little bit higher here. And that avoids getting into that position where the shoulders are too round, the arms are too straight. That's the position we want to look for to get our posture right. What I want to make sure from the front is that the left leg and shoulder are in one line, and that the shaft of the club leans slightly forward, and that my head is in the middle of my feet. So that gets me to the right starting position. So now the left side of my body is straight, and there's a small angle in the right side of the body. Okay, the second thing we're going to look at is the sequence of the swing. So this is really important. When we start the swing, we always want to feel that it's starting from the outside point, so the club head first. The club head's got further to go than the hands, the arms and the body. So I want to get that first move this way, so I get a little bit of motion from the right wrist there. That starts the club moving. As soon as that club starts moving, then my arms are going to start moving. So I get the club going first, then the arms start swinging, the shoulder starts to come around with the arms. So as soon as those arms start swinging, they pull the left shoulder from its starting position on the wall here to under my chin here. So on the downswing, I just want to get it started correctly. So I lean a little bit across to the left, so I make a little movement to the left. I'm making my left foot stable. You can see how my shoulders and my arms and the club are coming along. So I'm really making this little move with the body to the left, but the club and the arms are also moving. At that point, I'm just going to accelerate down into impact and through. Now when we're making this move, so when we're leaning left this way, we want to make sure that we're leaning left. There's a little bit of weight going onto the left foot, but I'm not spinning out this way, I'm not turning too much. So when I start the downswing, I make a little bump across to the left, and the club and arms drop down. So the club head stays behind me, the arms are coming in front of the body. So there's not a lot of turn at that point. It's really just a little shift across, and the arms and the club drop. So I'm not turning too much at this point. If I just turn the hips and the shoulders, the arms and the club will come out too much. It's more that little shift across, and this will drop in this way, and then the club will come out in front of the body at the bottom of the swing. So the third thing we're going to have a look at is the radius of the swing. So what's important for us here is that the grip end of the club maintains the distance from the sternum throughout the swing. So really, I don't really think too much about the radius of the club head. I control the radius of the grip end of the club, and then I've also got a good radius on the club head. So from here to here, this should be staying the same throughout the swing. So for a lot of you, when we start the swing, this is going to feel quite narrow in here. We want to avoid overextending this way and making this too wide. So what I do is I just let the right wrist and the right arm fold. The club's nice and close to me here, or feels nice and close. And then as I swing up, I want to maintain this distance. And it's actually going to feel for most golfers like it's quite wide up here to maintain this distance. So really what we want to avoid is getting overly wide here and then narrow here at the top. We want to feel that we're setting the club in a narrow position here, okay, to maintain that radius. Now as I lift the arms up and turn the body, I'm going to feel that the hands are pushing away a little bit up here to maintain this radius. Same thing's going to happen on the way down as I bump across to the left. I'm still maintaining this radius here. I'm going to do that as I come into the ball, and even as I come through. So now the left arm's folding, the right's extended, but this distance has stayed the same. So the last point we're going to have a look at is the pivot of the swing. So when we start, we want to make sure both feet are slightly open to allow for the pivot. And I always want to feel like I get that sequence right so the arms and clubs start the swing, but now I want to learn to turn around my centre. So important point is when I start, I've got my head in the middle of my feet and I want it to stay there. At the start I've got my left hip on the wall, so here's the wall here, and I want my left hip to stay there. So if I keep my left hip on the wall and the head in the middle of my feet, I'm learning to turn around my spine angle this way. So that's going to allow for really consistent ball striking. So I'm going to get the sequence right and the radius right with this move. Now as I keep going, as the arms pull me into a turn, I'm making sure that my left hip is staying on the wall. So for some of you it'll feel like you're pressuring left with the lower body. The head's going to stay in the middle of the feet, and that way I'm able to turn around my centre this way. So at the top of my swing I've got my left hip on the wall. I feel like my lower body weight's a bit on the left side, but my head here, this is really in the middle of the feet. So this is really important to get this feeling that we're turning around our centre on the backswing. There's a little bump across to the left, and again we're turning around our centre as we go through to about this point, and then I'll get pulled out of my posture into the finish. So when I'm making this pivot, there's definitely some pivot in the lower body, so that the knees are moving this way, the left knee's moving up this way, the right leg's moving back a little bit. The hips are also pivoting, and so is the upper body. So there's a pivot throughout the whole body. But when I do this, I want to always feel that my feet are really stable in the ground. So I keep my feet really stable in the ground, but I'm letting my knees and my hips move a little bit as I make that swing. So I get that first move, and now as the pivot happens, the knees, the hips and the shoulders are turning, the feet are staying really stable, so there's a lot of pressure going into the ground through the feet until I get to the top of the backswing. So on the downswing there's a little bump across, so again my feet are really stable, especially the left foot, and then I'm turning around my centre again. So although I've bumped across a little bit to the left, everything's staying stable from this point, and my head's staying in the same position, left hip staying in the same position, and I'm turning around my centre till about this point, and then I'll get pulled out of my posture at the end of the swing.